Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and a good day, Madame Yvonne, Makolo. Welcome to today's SkyConnect program, an AFRAA program that brings you engagements with top leaders in industry. In our today's session, my host is the CEO of Rwandair, who is no new fellow to most of you. And in our session today, we will be discussing a number of topics, including the state of recovery in Rwanda, and in particular, the East Africa region in general. We will look at the single African air transport market and the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, the dynamics there, the leadership role that Rwanda is showing in those regards. And we look at something that I think is very much dear to the heart of Yvonne, gender and inclusivity in the aviation space. So ladies and gentlemen, if you have joined us, relax and enjoy the show. But as usual, you have the opportunity to participate in the ongoing dialogue by either putting your questions in the Q&A tab, or if there are comments, you post them on the chat box. Intermittently, I would visit these two boxes, and if there are questions, I will post them to our guest on the show today for a response. If there are comments, I will bring them up for the attention of all of us. So I wish you all an enjoyable time today with Yvonne and myself. And just to get started, Yvonne, you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Raphael.
Great. How is Rwanda?
Oh, Rwanda is great, as always.
Great. Super.
Yes.
I miss coming there, and I hope to be there one of these sunny days.
You're welcome. We're in the rainy season, but you're most welcome to come.
Good. So we get started. I just want to give you the opportunity. My audience is drawn from different sectors, not just aviation. I'm sure you are no new fellow to aviation. But for the interest of those who are from the tourism and the hospitality sectors that might be joining us, as well as trade sectors, if you could briefly tell us who Yvonne is and what you are up to at Rwandair. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Raphael. I think you'd already introduced me, but I'm the CEO of Rwandair. I've been at Rwandair for close to 6 years now. It feels more like 15, but it's been 6 years of running the airline, which has been extremely exciting, especially for somebody who came from outside of the industry. Rwandair is the national carrier of Rwanda, and Rwanda being a landlocked country in the heart of Africa, the country has really prioritized aviation as a key enabler for the economy. A lot of investment has been made in the airline, in the airport infrastructure, in upskilling people who work in the aviation sector. And Rwanda is really positioning itself as a hub for services, tourism, and as a conference hub as well. And as the airline, we facilitate this. So we operate to a majority of our routes are within the African continent, about just over 20 routes within the African continent, but we also operate to Brussels, London, Dubai, Doha, Mumbai, and we're looking to expand even further.
Thank you. By no mean achievement, 6 years is a long time in the history of an average African CEO, particularly in the airline industry. So congratulations on 6 years and still counting. But tell me, you were not originally from the aviation industry. How was your baptism into this space?
It was baptism by fire, for sure. Aviation is a very, very complex industry. But on the business side, the business models are pretty similar. I came from the telecoms background. I was in telecoms for almost 11 years. So from a business model perspective, it's pretty similar, but I think the most challenging part was the technical part of things. I'm still learning every day, but I must say it's very exciting. I have a lot more gray hairs now. I've aged quite a bit, but it's been an exciting ride.
Great. And for any CEO that has lived through the last 2 years of COVID, in fact, should be credited with a lot of experience, if for nothing at all, for keeping aeroplanes in the air, getting employees paid, ensuring that the entire air transport system remained functional up till date. That has really been a credible accomplishment for any CEO in the airline that has lived through this period. So congratulations for keeping Rwandair not only going, but actually recovering significantly. And having said that, can you tell us a bit about how far you have brought Rwandair's recovery?
Well, as you say, it was a very tough 2 to 3. It's still tough, but for the last 3 years, it's been extremely tough. But at Rwandair, we have a very strong team, and we're proud of the fact that we managed to live through the challenges of the pandemic. We are now at 80% of pre-COVID operations. We've managed to bring back all the staff, and we're actually recruiting new staff as well. We're seeing a lot of demand right now, even right through the slack period, which is unusual. I guess it's a lot of pent-up demand. So we're very happy that the industry is recovering. We're crossing our fingers that nothing else destabilizes the current situation. So we've been adding additional frequencies. We had suspended quite a number of routes. We've returned to most of them. Some of them we suspended indefinitely, especially the thinner routes. We've seen a strong recovery, not only recovery, actually cargo has been growing year on year before the pandemic and right through the pandemic, almost at 30% annual growth rate. And we're seeing that strong demand. We'll be receiving our first cargo freighter sometime this week. So we're very proud of that. It comes at a very good time in terms of leveraging the demand that's in the market. And we're looking at opening up new routes. We have a number of African routes planned in the coming months, including Rwanda and Maputo. We're looking at expanding to Paris as well, and continuing to add additional frequency on the existing routes.
Great. And talking about the cargo business and your freighter coming, I think that will complement very well the belly space that you've been using thus far, and would bring a much more business to markets. Now, but across East Africa, would you say the recovery is going on at a similar pace in other parts of East Africa? Or Rwanda is sort of leaps ahead of other countries in the region?
I believe most of the airlines in the region are recovering pretty well. I don't have the inside details of how well, but from what I read and from what I discuss with other regional airline CEOs, they are seeing similar demand. Actually, the next challenge will be a challenge of getting enough capacity to meet the growing demand. So the recovery across the region is looking very good.
In fact, in Europe, when the recovery started gathering pace earlier this year, we saw there was a lot of labor shortage. And because people, when they were laid off, moved on to other industries, and now you're recovering, you want them back, and they don't have the appetite. Did you have a similar experience in your country, your airline?
Oh, well, not exactly a similar situation, but what we are seeing now is, especially for pilots, it's becoming a challenge, and especially because the European market has recovered, the American market has recovered. So getting additional pilots, or the ones who we had to let go of during the pandemic, are no longer available. So we're keeping an eye on that, but I believe that's going to be a challenge in the coming months as well for a lot of airlines, as demand continues growing, and as we get additional capacity, having crew to operate those aircraft is going to be a challenge.
But wouldn't you consider that it's a bit too early in the day to be adding on capacity, particularly bringing in freighters and looking at additional capacity? What is your outlook of the East African region, the market side?
Actually, where we're seeing a lot of demand is within the region, within the East African region. So Nairobi route, Entebbe, Dar es Salaam. We are seeing a lot of demand, and that's where we really want to also add capacity. I don't think it's too early, given the fact that the demand is there. We need to take advantage of the current the situation to really leverage off that and grow the airline and grow our industry further.
Oh, okay. And that's good. We look forward to you expanding and continuing to grow, and we wish you all the best. So in the sub-region, how are you managing the issue of cost? Because that has become the biggest pain of airlines now. How are you dealing?
No, cost is becoming a major issue, especially fuel costs. This is seriously impacting all airlines, and especially for fuel. It's not only the cost, but also the availability, because we fly to some markets and there's just no fuel at the stations. So this is something that really concerns us. AFRAA does a great job in terms of collective bargaining for fuel for the member airlines. But unfortunately, now that is also not being respected in some markets because of the current challenge of jet fuel. So cost is a big issue. The navigation costs, parking, airport charges, everything is so much more expensive now, and that's a challenge, and that's going to really slow down the growth of the industry. So this is something that needs to be addressed from a government level, with all the stakeholders. I know AFRAA is doing a lot of work on that and has really mapped it out on the sustainability roadmap. I'm glad that's being addressed, but we need to focus on that. Otherwise, the ticket prices keep getting higher and higher, and it becomes air transport becomes a luxury rather than the economic multiplier that it should be. So you find that it's cheaper to fly to Dubai as opposed to flying to Nairobi. So this is something that we really need to address.
And we also seeing significant depreciation of some African currencies.
Yes.
Is this impacting the real value of your revenues?
Absolutely, it's a serious concern. Devaluation, challenges with repatriating our funds, it's becoming worse and worse in some markets. So these are the challenges that are keeping us up at night. It's really becoming a major challenge and really constraining our cash flow as well.
So we need to be on our guard as an industry, just to be sure that the recovery we are seeing, the huge traffic volumes we are seeing, it could be impacted by the inflation, in some cases, the local inflation in the market and the devaluation of the local currency, as well as the high operating cost, the fuel cost. Everything is just getting off the roof. We just hope the appetite to travel is sustained by the passengers.
Absolutely.
And keep us going.
Absolutely.
Great. Now, but on the airline front, whilst we're looking at the cost, and the cost is significant, and that we're having these challenges, Rwanda is adding capacity. Now, has Rwanda got an appetite to work with other airlines? Is it already doing that, or does it plan to do that with other airlines in the sub-region? At least that could also help, one, in increasing load factors, two, also in ensuring that cost is sort of shared, because you can share capacity, you can reduce the number of every individual airlines flying to destinations if you combine flights. But is Rwanda already doing that, or has it got plans to do that going forward?
No, we are already doing that. We are actively seeking partnerships with airlines in the region, in the sub-region, international airline partners. We believe that that's one way that we will grow. I know within the African continent, this is still a challenge. Just looking at the statistics, where for African airlines, we see the interline, on average, you have about 8 interline agreements as opposed to 65 for the global average. This is worrying, and this is definitely not the way to go. We're actively seeking interline agreements, code shares with like-minded airlines. We've gone a long way in that, and we'll keep focusing on that. Not only in terms of interline and code share, but we're seeking partnerships on the maintenance front, on the training front. We're open to working with the sister airlines to see how we can address the issue of cost, but also have synergies between our airlines.
Synergies, yes, it's important, and working with each other, great initiative. But if we look at the different service levels delivered by different airlines, in fact, if you look across the continent, punctuality in some airlines is literally non-existent, whereas in others, they uphold punctuality highly. Now, again, in-flight services, the same. Services at the terminal, there are quite some differences in the product delivery. How are you able to cooperate in the midst of such varying service levels?
Well, no, that's a very good point. But that's where we can also leverage from each other and learn from each other and share best practices. And if we're able to control our costs, let's say instead of operating a particular route, we have an interline or a code share on a particular route, and you have some cost savings on that, you can actually use that money for improving your own onboard experience, or recruiting additional ground staff so that you have quick turnaround to make sure your on-time performance improves. So that's actually a factor that should encourage us as airlines to work together. Sharing best practices is definitely one way to go, and help each other grow. Yes, we're in competition, but we also have to survive in this industry.
Now, East Africa Community is one of the regional economic communities that is forging ahead very strongly with the open market concept among businesses within the East African community. On the airline front, is this facilitating an integration of the airlines?
I think for the airlines, we're still lagging behind. Just looking at the fact that we still have some countries who are not even signatories to SAATM. who still have very restrictive bilateral air service agreements. I think that that's still a challenge. I know it is being addressed by the East African Business Council as well. I hope this is resolved, because that would be a very quick, it would be a quick win. Just having open skies and working together with the regional, the East African airlines, that would definitely be a quick win. But currently that's not the reality.
But for those airlines that are not, or those countries that are not signatories to SAATM, what do you think can be done? How do we get them on board?
I think that's been the question.
Particularly, you know, if your whole sub-region were on SAATM, then it makes the issue much easier, because then you all sort of are the same level when it comes to operations. But if some are not, then it's tricky. How can we get all of them in East African community on board?
Honestly, that's the million-dollar question, and people have been trying to work around it for the last few years. It's tough to understand, because the benefits of SAATM are very clear. I would just speak to, for example, for Rwanda, just the fact that we've opened our skies and opened our borders. We're seeing real impact in the country in terms of tourism, in terms of conferences and events that we are hosting. So it's tangible results on the ground. So it's very difficult to understand why some countries do not want to be signatories to this.
So who leads the charge in bailing the cat? Should it be the African Union? Should it be the regional economic communities? Should it be AFCAC, AFRAA, or a combination of all? I'm not too sure. I think
it's a combination of all. Where we've reached right now, I think we need to hit it from all sides, because AU has taken the initiative and has set the roadmap for that. Now it's for all the stakeholders to tackle this from all fronts, really. And it's a shame that such a good initiative, such as SAATM, initiated by the AU, and then the African Continental Free Trade Area, also initiated by the AU, which complement each other and which would really drive the economic growth of countries within the African continent, and not being fully leveraged. So I think it's all from all sides. We need to tackle it from all sides.
Okay, so we look forward to AFRAA continuing to do what it's doing, lobbying and advocating for more states to join SAATM. But whilst we are doing that, we would also look to see those that are already signed on SAATM opening up and actually implementing. There's no point actually waiting for all 55 countries to one day open up. No, those who are willing should go ahead. As that is one of the propositions. One of the propositions is that those states that are ready and willing and have signed SAATM, please go ahead and open up to each other, and the others will join as we go along. I don't know whether you support that school of thought, or you support the school of thought that no, let's start SAATM implementation at the regional economic community level. In this case, East Africa. But when you look at it in East Africa, the complication is that some are not signatories yet. So then you have a stumbling block there. What do we do?
No, I strongly support the coalition of the willing, the ones who are ready to go. Let's go. And once the others see the actual benefits, the tangible benefits, then they'll join the bandwagon. We've been waiting all this time, and it's not moving. So I think that now is the right time. The few countries who are ready, let's go ahead and do it.
I'm sure we have representative of AU and AFCAC on this program, and I'm sure they're taking notes that, look, the airline industry is saying, let's go. Rwanda is saying, look, please, we've waited long enough. Let's keep going. The rest, they can join at their own pace and time, but we should not waste more time. Africa needs to be integrated. We need to boost our trade. We need to be connected. So let's get going.
Yeah.
But having said that, Rwandair was one of the first to actually initiate the carriage of cargo under the Africa Continental Free Trade Zone between Rwanda and Ghana. I think there's some disruption in the line. Whether you
No, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. Good. You pioneered the first shipment of some cargo under Africa Continental Free Trade between Rwanda and Ghana. And this is a gate opener for the industry. Now, how did you become the first to lead in this charge? Because subsequently, I know Kenya Airways also moved some goods, but it all started with Rwanda.
Well, if our exporters succeed in the African Continental Free Trade Area, the airline succeeds as well. So we were happy to set preferential tariffs for Rwandan exporters exporting not only to Ghana within the umbrella of the Continental Free Trade Area. We will be running preferential rates for that to encourage businesses in the country to take advantage of this. Of this initiative. We had done it before a few years ago, where we wanted to support the export sector, and the government focus was really on increasing exports, especially horticultural exports. So we had a preferential tariff for our exporters for running for almost a year. In order to give them an entryway into some key markets for our fruits, vegetables, flowers, etc. And that really boosted the export sector, which continues growing in Rwanda. So we are hoping that the same thing happens under this new initiative, and we're very happy to support it. If they win, we win as well.
I hope that these initial initiatives under SAATM are progressing smoothly. Is the airline having any challenges shipping these things, or everything is facilitated nicely at the point of entry?
So far, it's things are running smoothly. And we're eager to see the exports grow, and we'll continue supporting it with our belly capacity, with our freighter, if need be, get additional freighters as well. But we're very excited about it.
Now, the issue is there seems to be a missing link between the airlines and the business community who want to participate actively in the single African air transport market. In other words, now, who would let them know what is or in which markets the facilitation exists and where it's easier to go, and which markets have certain conditions that needs to be met? I'm not too sure who needs to handle that between the two.
I believe it needs to be driven. It's a combination of the airline working with the exporters, but also working with the Ministry of Trade and the Association of the Exporters, so that we can align on how to properly leverage both SAATM and the African Continental Free Trade Area. It just can't be one party. It's a combination of all the different stakeholders working together in order to make this succeed.
Okay, now let me go first now to I've seen a couple of questions.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I can pick a few of them, and then we deal with them. The first one is, how will innovation play a pivotal role in ancillary revenue stream generation? And what is Rwanda's innovation strategy in this regard? This is from Phil Wakumba. He's talking about ancillary revenue. Is Rwanda pursuing ancillary revenue?
Yes, we are. Definitely, in order to supplement the passenger cargo revenue, we really need to focus on the ancillary revenue as well. And I do agree, innovation will play a big role. We need to, and on that, from that ancillary revenue point of view, it's understanding how can we make it easier, and what do our passengers, our customers actually want? How can we meet their demands, and how can we deliver it to them in a speedy way, in a convenient way? Which is where innovation comes in. But we are focusing on that in a big way. We are, and our commercial department, they are also driving that, and we're trying to grow that area as well, instead of just relying on the traditional revenue streams. So it is a big focus area, and it will continue being a major focus area for most airlines.
Oh, good. And another question from Andrew Lester. Andrew says, what challenges do Rwanda see regarding training as demand grows? And would you consider outsourcing training to an ATO?
Yes, absolutely. Training is a major area, and we do use different ATOs to meet our training demands already. We try and do some in-house, but the ones where we don't have the capacity to do right now, we are outsourcing. We're working with different ATOs, both within the African continent and outside the African continent, to meet our training needs. But this will become another critical area as we bring in more and more, as demand continues growing and we bring in new staff. We'll need to upskill our staff and continue with the recurrent training of our staff. So this is the key area. And yes, we're open to working with different ATOs.
Then another question is from Kofi Heneku says, would a common distribution platform for regional and domestic airlines in Africa sort of help bring down the cost of operations for airlines, you think?
So a parallel distribution system? I'm not so sure. I think the easiest way to bring down the costs is looking at the big ticket items, which is the taxes on fuel, airport charges, and all the other big navigation, parking. All those charges need to come down in order to make fares more affordable for our citizens.
Good. So I think we go back to our discussion. Thanks so much for those who have posted questions. We'll get back to you. Now, I know for a fact that Rwanda has adopted a policy of visa for all citizens of the world on arrival at the point of entry into the country, Rwanda. Mm-hmm. What informed such an out-of-the-box decision, and is it yielding the right dividends?
Well, in terms of yielding the right dividends, absolutely. What informed it? Rwanda as a country is extremely progressive, and as I mentioned, Rwanda wants to position itself as a hub for tourism, for services, for conferences. So the easiest way to do that as well is to make it easier for people to come into the country. Not only, you can't talk about open skies without talking about open borders. What's the point of opening our skies if you make it prohibitive for people to enter the country? So in 2018, when Rwanda implemented the visa on arrival for all citizens, we saw a 24% increase in tourism in the country and a 50% increase in intra-African trade. So that's immediate tangible results. Now we're seeing Rwanda, I think after Cape Town, holds the most conferences and events in the African continent. People are eager to come and have their events in the country, sporting events. The African NBA, the BAL was hosted here, the Tour du Rwanda, all these different sporting events are happening here. So I think that was very forward thinking of the government, and it's yielding very good results for the country.
Oh, great. And I also noticed that there's a visa interoperability arrangements between some countries in the EAC region, in Kenya, yes, Rwanda, I think Uganda.
And Uganda, yes. So there's a common EAC visa. So for tourists who want to see a bit of each country, they just get one visa and they can move between the 3 countries easily. It would be great if that's expanded to all the East African countries. The easier we make it for people to travel, the faster our industry recovers.
So are there any challenges with these 2 programs? The visa for every citizen on arrival and the EAC visa?
We haven't seen any challenges. I believe the people responsible, the immigration department, did a lot in order to ensure that we don't get any major challenges, have the right systems in place. So far, we haven't seen any major challenges with the implementation, and I'm happy to see some other African countries like Benin, Ghana, who've implemented the same visa on arrival for members of the African Union. So that's great.
And like you rightly put it, we cannot open skies and keep the borders shut. It's meaningless.
Yeah.
We must do both. And again, we would want to see the African Union, the regional economic community, and the countries, specific countries, take measures to ensure that their borders are open, just as they are making efforts to open their skies, so that we can be able to effectively move around and trade with each other. This is the only way we can go and build the Africa we want, if you agree with me. So now let's shift a bit to the issue of gender and inclusivity.
My favorite topic.
I know you're one of the champions of this program, and definitely for all the good reasons. But do you think we are making progress at an acceptable pace?
Well, I think we're making progress, but I think we can move even faster, because again, just to start, expecting the industry, especially within the African continent, to grow and reach its full potential while ignoring 50% of the population is very short-sighted. I know this issue is being addressed at all levels. IATA is advocating for this, and with the 25 by 2025 initiative, we are seeing airlines signing up to it. But it's not only signing up, but also it has to be implemented within the organization. I think the issue of gender diversity, it has to be a deliberate effort by airlines to really ensure that it's done. It's not just talking about it or putting it on paper, but a deliberate effort has to be made to ensure that we bring in women. And again, it's also bringing in women at the higher level jobs. Not just as cabin crew, although there's nothing wrong with that as well. But we have to make sure that at all levels in the organization, we have a good representation of women. That means giving them an opportunity, but also having an enabling environment so that they can succeed in their job. There's no point of giving women an opportunity and then putting barriers to make it very difficult for them to thrive and grow in those positions. So it really has to be a deliberate effort. And I'm eager to see a lot of airlines implementing this. Even within Rwandair, a lot still needs to be done. We're doing it, but a lot still needs to be done.
I was having this conversation with somebody, I think about 6 months ago, and about women in the aviation industry, particularly at the senior level. And the person was of the view that it would appear that women are more comfortable at the operational level, and even so, at more the customer interfacing level than at the managerial and senior executive levels. Is this true?
I disagree. I really disagree. Maybe women do very well in the customer facing jobs because they're more empathetic and all that. But I don't believe it's true that they're more comfortable in those positions. We need to dig deeper and see what they're given opportunities at the managerial level. Was the environment conducive for them to grow? Because we also have some women who join the managerial level, and then there's a lot of they don't have an enabling environment, whether it's a long working hours where there's no flexibility, yet they have to take care of the family, pick up the kids from school, do whatever needs to be done, because women are still the primary caregiver in most cases. So we need to support women in that sense, having a bit more flexibility, allowing women to work flexible hours if necessary, giving them time if kids are sick to take care of the kids, having a work-life balance. This is all very important. Otherwise, they'll be comfortable. They'll be comfortable staying at the customer-facing staff position. There's nothing wrong with that as well. But we won't get as many women wanting to advance within the airline because they see what's happening to the few women who are there, and they're like, no, that's not for me. I won't be able to manage that. So we need to encourage them, but also have all this, have the enabling environment for them as well.
But talking about enabling environment for them, then it might not necessarily only be from the airline side, but also from their own family side.
So, 100%.
Because you need a supportive family and a supportive employer to be able to pursue your career objectives to the latter.
100%, because I'm speaking from experience. I would not have been able to do this job if I didn't have that support structure. At home, people supporting me, but at work as well. And the onus is also on men to drive this, because I've stayed in aviation for the last 6 years, and my kids haven't needed therapy, thank God, yet. They still have, they're doing well, because I've received that support, and the support comes from fellow male CEOs who encourage and who push you to grow and to deliver more. So it's not only women who are supposed to support other women, which we should do, but the men have to also be there and support women in the industry, both at home and at work.
But then there's also the other counter argument that when you look at it from the start level, of late, there is the argument that we should support the girl child, we should support the girl child, and it would appear that the boy child is now also being neglected. How do we draw the balance?
Well, that's I think the focus has been on the boy child for such a long time. But anyway, there has to be a balance. But the girl child has been at the back end for such a long time. We need women and men to be at the same level. If there's a need to balance it out, then the balancing is done. But we still need to push. We still need to push the agenda of women and the girl child.
So as African Airlines, IATA declared 25 by 2025. In other words, we should have 25% of our top leadership and managers being women or being of the other sex. It depends on, because we might also have in some environments where the majority are men, are women, and the minority are women. So 25% in managerial position of the other sex by 2025. Now, as African Airlines and as Rwandair, how are you working towards that? First, as Rwandair, and as Africa, how can we collectively take some steps towards reaching that goal?
Well, as I said, it has to be a deliberate effort. I'm glad that Rwandair has exceeded that 25%. And 25 is the minimum. Why settle for 25? If we do better than that, that's even better. And on the Rwandan context, just seeing women in leadership positions in the country, where the parliament is over 60% women and the cabinet is 50% women, and we have women CEOs in a lot of the top organizations here. We can see the benefits of having women in leadership positions. So the 25 by 2025, that's the bare minimum we can do, really. So if we can exceed that, I'll be happy to see that. And as I mentioned, it's again being deliberate about it, whether in the hiring process, making sure that you have enough female candidates to interview, encouraging women in the company to apply for some of these managerial jobs. So it's using different deliberate efforts from different areas to ensure that we drive this agenda. We're doing well in Rwanda, but I'd want to see us doing even better going forward, and the same thing for other African airlines. And that's another area where we also need to exchange best practices in terms of how we're doing, what's the best way within the African context, what's the best way to implement this. If another airline is doing an incredible job, I'd be happy to learn how they're doing it. I'd be happy to share what we're doing on our side. But this is another area where we really need to collaborate and exchange best practices as well.
Great. Now, again, let me go back to my audience, and there's a very interesting question here from one of our listeners. Dahir Mohammed says, aviation and football go hand in hand, and that he sees Rwanda everywhere in the UK, for example, on the shirts of Arsenal. Have you ever considered sponsoring the largest women professional football team in the USA as a market entry goal?
Wow, that's an interesting one. We hadn't considered it, but that's food for thought. I think Rwanda is doing extremely well with the Visit Rwanda advertising, whether with Arsenal or PSG, and we are seeing it bearing fruit. So that's something to think about for sure.
So part of women empowerment.
Yes, absolutely.
So now back to my question. So for the Africa as a region and African airlines, at least Rwanda has exceeded 25 by 2025 already, and it's forging ahead towards 50. Now, for the rest of Africa, and I'm sure in many of the airlines, you will be lucky to have one director who is a woman in the management team. In most cases, they are all men. Or you might have one woman or two women in the lot. Now, what can be done and by who to move us towards this goal? Quite tricky.
Well, Rafael, it's exactly what I said. It has to be across the board, whether it's everybody has to drive this agenda. Number one, we have to make a decision that we have to have women in X number of women in the executive committee, let's say. We need at least this number of directors, and actually do that when hiring or when replacing somebody who's left or whatever. Make sure that you actually interview women and give them a chance to come in. But most importantly, once they come in, because a big issue that we do have in the airline industries and a lot of industries, other industries in top positions, is once women come in, they meet with a lot of frustrations, and it becomes very, very difficult for them to succeed in those positions. So what can be done to make them succeed in those positions, and identify what those key things are, and actually implement them. As I said before, it has to be a deliberate effort, really. It's not just talking, because I think we've talked a lot. We've talked a lot about it, and we've talked endlessly about it. Now it's similar to SAATM. It's always on the agenda. It's always on the agenda. We talk about it, but it now needs to be implemented.
And I think the more we talk about things, the less we act on them.
Exactly.
Particularly in Africa, the more we talk, the less we act.
Exactly.
Look at Yamoussoukro decision. We've hammered it everywhere, and nothing is happening. Not much has happened, you know.
Exactly.
So I think we need to act more and talk less.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but during the laboratory on sustainable air transport development that was hosted by AFRAA middle of the year, and one of the areas that was looked at was how we can actually take on this women empowerment to the next level. And there was a proposal that we should, as airlines, consider giving a quota to women when it comes to training opportunities. At least within an airline, if you are having training to be done to a certain category of people, just consider the women and assign a quota to them. At least that builds capacity, and that helps them to aspire to take on much more senior roles. And I thought that was an interesting development. And the plan is actually to roll that out in partnership with the ATOs and see how ATOs can actually support that initiative. But in addition, the thinking also is that where we can get sponsorship or scholarships, we should also consider a similar quota system to give women, particularly in the critically needed areas where women are lacking. I think that can actually support our initiatives and goals there.
I agree, and where it's reached now, I think the quota system will have to be implemented. I know here in Rwanda we do have a quota system in terms of board representation. It has to be 30%, 30% at least minimum has to be women, and this is enforced. So this is something that needs we need to look at, because we can start with that, with a quota system, and once it picks up momentum, then that can be slowly released. But something as practical as that needs to be done.
Good. Now, one more question from one of my guests. who is anonymous, but he says he wants to know, how is the partnership with Qatar Airways working? How is it going?
Well, it's going well. We're still finalizing the legal side of it, the transfer of shares and in terms of the shareholding. But even before that's finalized, we're working together well. We have an extended code share that we implemented last year, which gives both airlines access to close to 65 additional routes. And this is working very well for us as Rwandair as well. We are working together on other commercial initiatives. So far it's working great, and I'm looking forward to the finalization of the JV airline.
So are you looking at other non-African partnerships going forward?
From a shareholding perspective, I'm not sure because for Qatar, they'll be taking on 49% and the government will retain majority shareholding at 51%. I don't know if that'll change down the road, but we'd be happy to do other partnerships with African airlines. We're already doing some. We have code shares with other African countries, and we work with we've been working with other African countries from training perspective, from maintenance on the maintenance side. But we'd be very happy to see additional partnerships with African airlines.
Thank you for that. And another question from Andrew Lester again. He's saying, would you and Rwandair consider in empowering the girl child to be open to establishing a program with other African airlines to get more women trained as pilots and more women onto the flight deck of aircrafts in Africa? Yeah, is it something that you think would be Rwanda has an appetite for?
That is something we'd be open to discussing. I'm personally not happy about how few women pilots we have as African airlines. Even as Rwandair, I think we have about 10 female pilots out of 100 and close to 120 pilots. So we still have a long way to go. Our aviation academy here in Rwanda, we're still getting very few women coming in as cadet pilots. So I think that also a lot more needs to be done at the lower level, whether in primary school or high school, to encourage the girl child to go towards the STEM subjects and look at aviation as a career, not only as pilots, but as engineers, etc. The representation is still very low, so a lot needs to be done. And given the fact that soon we'll have a major shortage of pilots, we need more women as pilots.
Great. All too so soon, our time is almost up, but I cannot let you go until I have asked you to tell us what your final thoughts are. What messages do you have to share with myself and my noble audience, which are now about 101 people listening to us?
Oh, the pressure.
What are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts would be generally about African aviation. I think the potential is immense, and the fact that African aviation only accounts for 2% or 2.5% of global aviation is really unacceptable. So a lot needs to be done in terms of growing this industry within the continent. So we really need to address all those different factors and implement SAATM as soon as possible, look at the issue of costs as quickly as possible, drive work together, have partnerships, more partnerships between airlines in the industry, look at the issue of gender diversity. I can't end by emphasizing that the issue of gender diversity. So a lot needs to be done. We need, given that Africa, the population of Africa is 16% of the global population, why isn't aviation closer to that 16% mark? Why is it at 2%? So and especially with all the initiatives being implemented, and especially with the AFCFTA, which is once fully implemented, will be the largest free trade area in the world. The opportunities are there. We need to leverage it in order to drive the growth of our industry in the continent.
Well, what a way to end. The opportunities are there. We need to harness it for the growth and benefit of the African continent. And on that note, I would want to thank you so much, Mrs. Yvonne Makolo, CEO of Rwandair, for taking time off your busy schedule to join us today on AFRAA SkyConnect. There are lots of congratulatory messages coming in for you for excellent exposition of the issues during the show. And people are very thankful and very appreciative of your participation today. And on behalf of the Secretary General of AFRAA and the entire AFRAA team, I want to thank you so much. And I wish you and Rwandair all the very best. And I look forward to having a similar encounter with you in the not too distant future. Thank you very much, and do have a blessed day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. I enjoyed this. Thanks.
Thank you. To all our guests, thank you so much. And that brings us to the end of the show. Have a nice day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.